Hello, morning, everyone. Should we start? Dean Fan, Mark, Professor Zhang, Professor Wei, Professor Hu, Professor Guo, our students, dear students, good morning. Today we're so happy to have Professor Zhang to give us a talk on teachers noticing, which is a very important role for teachers' professional development. Before his talk, I will make a brief introduction about him. Professor Tang is an associate professor in the Department of Mathematics and Information Technology at the Education University of Hong Kong. He served as the program leader of the Master of Arts in Math and Pedagogy. He is also a member of the Curriculum Development Council Committee on Mathematics Education and the Coordinating Committee on Basic Competence and Rapid Literacy in the Hong Kong Education Bureau. He is the representative for Hong Kong math education to the International Commission on Mathematics Instruction since March 2025. He also acted as the deputy director of the Third Wave Lab at the University of Melbourne. His research interests include teachers noticing and mathematics teacher education, effects in mathematics education, and mathematics curriculum reform. So let's welcome Professor Zhang.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Zhang's introduction, and thanks, Dean and Professor Wade. So many ways are familiar with the topic. Some researcher and some student may have read some articles recently in different journal articles about teacher education. Today I'm honored to present my some research experience with you and share some my thoughts and some my students' work. And also I hope to take this opportunity to communicate with you. Before my sharing, I think maybe it's better for us to have a very just give a very brief introduction to yes. I will repeat the sentence, but I want to say. Recently, I have some connection between from the student and teachers aspect in math education and relate to the teacher education. Really because today I think it's my 25 years teaching at the university. Okay, so I have many so-called old students and different students from different groups. For example, the pre-cert teacher, insert teacher, master student, undergrad student, doctor student. So most of them are trained to be a future math teacher or the existing math teacher. So during the teaching experience, I have some observation. Of course, based by own experience. We also talk about teaching and learning, and we conduct some research in teacher education. So maybe the question for us. So what are the key questions in teacher education? Three, okay? We think about a decade. If you have a chance to ask ourselves, what are the three key questions in teacher education? We train our students, we train our teachers, right? Okay. Several okay. I think you may have some thinking in your mind, but I asked two very powerful. One is ChatGPT. Okay. This is used by our university and open for all the staff and the students. Use the ChatGPT ask questions. So what are three key questions in teacher education? I highlighted the keywords. Effectively prepare our teacher. But here emphasizing student and learning diversity. The second is the effective method. The third is professional development, PT, or professional growth. So these are three questions provided by ChatGPT. How about DeepSeek? Okay, ask DeepSeek. At the same time, I try to make them all learn from each other. Maybe they learn from each other. Okay, ChatGPT give us three, and this is DeepSeek give us three questions. First is teacher knowledge. You can see, right? What kind of knowledge, skills, position should teacher possess? And the second is tell them how to learn and teach as a pre-cert teacher or user teacher. The third is aim to cultivate and for what purpose? I think related to the professional growth. Why we need to teach in this way, and how can I become a very good, successful, a good teacher? So back to the question. If we ask ourselves the key three questions, I usually only say, for example, three questions from the philosophy. Like, who am I? Okay, where did I come from, and where I'm going? So I think these three questions relate to the three key questions in deep education. Agree? Yes, yes, because we teach our students what's a teacher. Why need to be a teacher, right? So how to be a good teacher? Thank you so much. Yeah. So for teach for maths, teach for English, or teach for human being, or teach for personal whole person development, which are different. You teach for different purpose, so the focus may be different in your classroom and your teaching philosophy. So I think these two questions are related. That's I think it's a old question. So you teach human being, you not teach something. So if we back to the classroom, we see a student face, and we back to another very interesting dialogue between Parental Shaw and the Newsroom. I think you're familiar with these two person. I don't know in which part, but they raise the question. Who can be a teacher? So if you have some friend very familiar, in the old time, sometimes even in mainland China, everybody can be a teacher. Okay, if I have no job, to be a teacher. Okay, sometimes we have this theory. So he who can does, he who can't teaches. I was told that the third statement of Adam is he who can't teach to be a teacher. Okay, so this is about maybe a joke, but later, Lee want to emphasize this issue. We are teaching. We want to be a teacher. We should be professional, like the doctor, the lawyer. So how to be a professional teacher? How to be a qualified teacher? Since 1980, I think the beginning of AR in Kung Later, now currently we talk about the new term, so-called professional competence, right? Or professional ability, something like that. So this let us rethink the education, the ability, the competence of a teacher, and then relate to some teaching activity. I think teaching from some observations, some teaching research group, and from the demonstration, and we also know there are some competition, from the Jiao newspaper. So there's a competition about the teaching, right, in Macau, and some competition in different places. For example, this one, okay, Macau know the Chinese term is related to the precept teachers teaching competition. Okay, the teaching field competition, and this is for the EPG students, top program teachers, or RPG students. So which means we need translate to be a very good teacher to train the teacher skill. So do these things. So what we are doing, for example, what we're teaching for what? We want to observe their teaching and evaluate teaching, especially as a educator. Okay, we observe some student teaching. These are my students. Okay, my students, they conduct teaching practice in Hong Kong school. Primary student, secondary student, okay? So you can say this teach primary student use some hands-on activity, teach the triangle, shape, circle. The secondary student teach English summer triangle and sign, okay, teach the result. And some students may use some so-called ICT, the platform to teach. So a question raised by them before I enter classroom. Supervisor, what do you want to see? You know the question, right? What do you want to see? Means if you want to see PPT, I show you PPT. If you want to see games, I show the game. If you want to see IT, I show you IT, right? If you want to see GeoGebra, I show you GeoGebra. So they ask me, what do you want to see? And do you want to show me? So I played for themselves. So this is very interesting a dialogue between teaching education and teaching. All exists in our reality, right? So we take a form. Maybe our dean for the family also has a form to observe our colleague teaching or the appraisal. So this is very common in any area. So how this form, evaluation form, come out? We don't know, right? Several indicators, interaction, knowledge, attitude, or what aspect. So when we see the teaching, they are very eager to know what we want to see, and I say I want to see what you want to show me. So there may be a gap or misunderstanding between two groups or several different groups. So we teach these three teachers we call learn to teach. So I will give you some suggestions. You learn from some experienced teachers because they have taught for 10, 15 years. So they know how to control the classroom, manage classroom. They know how to raise the question, questioning skill, and they know in which stage they may raise the question and post exam to students. So learn from teachers, from different teachers. This is Hong Kong primary teachers, secondary teachers, major in mathematics. This primary teacher major in maybe visual art, not mathematics, but they teach mathematics. So this Japanese teacher, primary teacher. You can guess why he leave a little space on the blackboard. Very interesting. There's a term in Japanese curriculum promote student mathematical thinking. So each Japanese math teacher knows this is a very key term. But how to promote student mathematical thinking? Okay, so there's a way to leave a space on the blackboard. Ask the student to show their work on the blackboard and communicate. So this is a approach for the math teachers to promote student mathematical thinking in general. And we learn from experience, we learn from experts, right? So I think this is a very I think it started for many, I think it's 30 or 40 years retrieved from education psychology. They learn from the Martin Chen, dancer, okay, musician, how they achieve so good out performance. It's not mathematician, it's not mathematician, it's education psychology. So at that time they pursue the expertise of the expert. So you know David Wagner. At the same age with Lee Schumann. So they want to see expert pedagogy in teacher education. So learn from expert. But learn from expert, not from teacher. From other areas, the pianist, musician, okay? Some attempting in the chess, so they know how they become an expert. So the expertise are raised to identify some teacher's professional competence. So learn from the expert and learn from other, the peers. So that's why lesson start is popular in Japan and in China. I'm not sure in Macau if we have a culture to conduct a learning community to conduct lesson study. So you know this is a theme-based activity, professional activity. So a good teacher and some so-called knowledgeable other, they play the role of facilitator. We talked about yesterday afternoon. So provide some professional advice for these teachers and talk about the topic. In Hong Kong, we use a similar way. We call it lesson study, learner that based on the Asian theory proposed by Fritz Martin. So identify students' difficulty and design some problem to task and try teaching and then again and plan and teach again. So it's like which is similar. So learn from others, from the peers with community. But all about this, I talked about learning to teach, learn from the experts, from others, from the peers. So you see the several common themes can be retrieved from the research. The first thing I proposed for many years, the teachers could be regarded as a researcher. So they need to study their own work, reflect in practice, reflect on the practice, which means after observation. So what do you think about the teaching? Explain some ideas and do some actual research. So study classroom teaching and study some learning communities, it could be a way to promote so-called effective professional development. Let the pre-level teachers or in-subject learn to teach. So this is a very interesting why there's a very common language in the class, even if you don't know the teacher, but they share some similar way to teach math in a so-called effective way. So somebody say the DNA of pedagogy. But we want to identify what kind of DNA in the classroom. Of course, you know, even in Macau, in Hong Kong, in the GPA, we have different kinds of DNA. If you compare the US classroom or the UK classroom and the Chinese classroom, we have different DNA, but we still have some common DNA talk about technique. That's why we started the classroom teaching this way. Okay. Related to the question, very good question in teacher education. So we teach them to be a good teacher. We help them to observe the lesson, to observe or attend the student, to observe the classroom critical event, to raise the question, plan, and the teachers. So design the teaching plan. These teachers are generated by I, not by me. What happened in classroom? Why the student raise these questions? And why we the lesson or observe the lesson with a different perspective with our student? So when assess their teaching practice. So what do we notice? I think this is the theme of today's share. Raise the teachers notice. If everybody has a different noticing skill, I think everybody has noticing skill. Something like the PCK. Everybody has PCK. Depends on the level. If we use the level, strong or weak. So we can notice the face, notice the behavior, the gesture, the language, maybe the mathematical knowledge, maybe the presentation skill, or the slides, or lesson plan, or worksheet, different aspects. So does the teacher notice make a difference in different classes? It's a good question. If we have some approach to help the teachers develop the notice skill, maybe when they enter the school, they could be a very good teacher, or they could be a very good judge within 5 years. So this is the purpose of teacher education. Otherwise, we train our students for 4 or 5 years, but they still know how to teach. Then, to enter the school, they learn again as a freshman to learn again how to teach. So why we invested money into the 5 years program, a 4 years program? So what have done in this program? I think this is the problem we need to consider. The notice skill related to the observation. I think these topics have been studied for many years. And different scholars, they develop some instrument to observe the cluster. But I can say we don't have a unit less observation protocol to observe any lesson. We don't have, right? So you can see here in education or the study of truth and instruction. Still, some scholars they develop some so-called effective less observation skills. But we must know here. We always see what we want to see. Right? If you sit in the classroom, you will see the interaction. Oh, I like interaction. I like dialogue. So you listen to the teacher's presentation carefully. But sometimes some teachers want to emphasize the figures, right? I like some representation, the table, the figures, the video, etc. So everybody has their own focus related to the value of teaching and learning. So what teacher noticing, I think there are tons of literature to mention these constructs. So generally say it's a reflection of teachers' professional competency, and the notice student thinking is even more fundamental. And it could be regarded as a specialized way teacher observe and make sense of classroom events. That means if I am a PE teacher, I work with math to be different from the math teacher's perspective. If I'm a dancer, okay, I work on different from the teacher's perspective. So this reflects your professional competence. You work with the student, oh, you're so happy, so cute. That's it, right? But a teacher works with student who I think may be confused about some concepts. So how do you change my personal area, my personal PCK and PK or subject matter knowledge? Help to identify the interpret student face or their other interaction. So this is the way we make a difference in the classroom. Why we need to consider the generosity, I think research should give us some explanations from different perspectives. Here just highlight some words. But if we consider the research outcome, we have conducted research to review some literature published within 15 years. We see the creating trade, right? Creating trade, and especially since this year, the reason there's a published by Spring in this year, and there are another published, I think it's here, 2002, by John Mather. It's time to propose the spling of noticing, but I don't have. It's just a book, okay? And the book it focuses on mathematics teaching. Later, some science teacher, they also emphasize teacher noticing. And later, language teacher. Recently, I know some geography teacher, they also take this perspective, teacher noticing in geography. Okay, so this is three trade. And we find that the publication is very interesting. Many studies, I say the majority of studies just emphasize the data. What are we noticing? What and how? But don't know why. If we have a so-called low-level notice skill, we want to ask a question: how can help them, right? But few intervention studies, few. And some studies just conduct within a very short period, for example, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. A longer, I think, is at less than 3 months. The reason is what? You can guess. Because the samples are their students in a semester, you know. So they just study the students for several weeks. That's it. I think if we want to say this is so important, why we cannot see the sustainable development of gender difference, right? Because in the field, each teacher should possess during his professional career. So completing the track in the research, a few studies focus on the intervention study, which means we have a chance and it's the opportunity for us to conduct study in the intervention. This paper is under review. Last night I checked the result. Hope so. It's good, but it's wait for the final decision. We don't know the decision. Okay. Reviewed for more than 6 months. Okay. Now we'll talk about technology. So when technology appears, so we try to integrate these so-called new things into the teacher development, this line, right? Practice, teacher noticing, and development, and teacher training. So how the technology can contribute to promote teacher noticing, and with the help of technology, in which way we can help the teacher develop their teacher noticing. I think could be an emerging issue if we talk about AI empowered or AI assisted in teacher education. I will explain the reason why we need to consider technology in teacher education or teacher noticing research. This is the background of the teacher noticing research. So here I give a very brief introduction. I think maybe some colleagues may not familiar with the field. So this is very easy because if you read the papers, everybody know. I just give a very short introduction. For example, from the beginning, 30 years ago. But Goodwin is not a math educator, no. Okay, they conduct research in maybe ethnography, use the method of ethnography to study the human being and identify which should possess a professional vision. So currently, we still found this term in the literature. And then John Mason proposed the professional noticing and the sharing, proposed professional noticing of student thinking. This is the framework. And then Professor Gabriel Kaiser in Germany, Hamburg University, revised the framework to be a PID, perception, interpretation, and decision making. At the beginning, it's just 2 stages. One is attend, we mean observe, right? And then explain, interpretation. That's it. Later, and many scholars think, if you just observe and explain, it's not talking about teaching. We need to know how to do. The action is very important. So decision making. If you are the teacher, how to respond to the situation. If you are the teacher, how to teach the topic, which is more important. So these 3 stages should be connected, not just the first 2 stages. And then there's a new focus framework, which means classroom teaching is very complicated. Everything can be noticed or observed. But for an effective teaching, there should be some core elements, right? So we should take a focused perspective, a lens to watch the event, to watch the student thinking. Some just, I'm not saying noise, just something, okay? For example, laughing or chatting or others. But some are very core for effective teaching. So they propose the focused framework. And there's a fair framework. You can see this is the trend about the research. And the different theoretical perspective to explain, because we emphasize the construct are maybe not true. So why this is important? So there are several perspectives to explain. Cognitive psychology, from the memory scheme and the discipline specific perspective. And here is the expertise, right? I mentioned, proposed by Berlin, David Berlin, and Schumann also mentioned this expertise. And there's some scholars explain compare the novice teacher and the expert teacher, identify some key elements. And there's some other scholars emphasize the social culture perspective. So why this happened in this classroom, but it's disappear in another culture? So there's some main framework in the literature, but the keywords is two-stage, I just mentioned, make connection and to reason. So attend and interpret is more important. Later, from 2 to 3, right? AIS shaped. This is published in ZDM 2021. They think the teaching or the environment is not taught by the teacher, but co-shaped by student and teacher. So this is a new perspective to explain the event in the classroom. And there's some coding method. You can see the result, right? 1, 2, 3. So there's some levels, different levels. But if you take a close look at the paper, this distribution is very simple. Okay, it's very simple. And each level has some overlapping. I think there's some space for us to reconceptualize the framework. Sharing, okay, focus on the student mathematical thinking. And some research focus on notice the classroom management. Some notice the critical event. Some notice the student-teacher interaction. Here's the Gabriel Kaiser, talk about the PID model. And recently, there are several very important review published in teaching TATE and educational review studies, something like that. So these two papers compare the construct and the framework and the result. But we find very interesting. The scholars use different terms to describe the phenomena, and they use different understanding to explain the framework, but they don't have a common language. So maybe it could be a way for us to reconceptualize. Is that true for AID or PID? Sometimes if we observe something, it don't explain more, we just take action, right? Without hesitation. But the theory tells us we should go through the whole 3 stages. So this could be a simplified way, or you may say it could be based on the study, okay, the research perspective. So can we revise the framework? Currently, my PhD student, we try to do some work in this area. So last year we called a special issue to try to elaborate more about mathematical noticing. So it's good news. I just published on the website just online. They told me we'll be grouped into an issue in August in this summer. So most papers have been published, yes, online. So if you have interest, you can scan the QR code and find online papers. Of course, this is a very limited group scholar from so-called West and East, but we try just set up a bridge to a dialogue, how to interpret the Asian classroom from the so-called Western perspective, how to study our own classroom, not just use the Western framework, use the Chinese framework. I will mention this framework. Okay, so the third part is the technology-based. What technology? I think we have 1, 2, 3, right? Remember? Okay, something wash our brain, right? At least we want our teacher learn these skills. Okay, so we need to provide some material or task to elicit their noticing. So attend and then interpret. Interpret reflect their professional knowledge. For example, somebody may just explain the phenomenon based on their personal experience as a student, but some explain the event as a teacher, as a math teacher. But sometimes some may explain the event as a principal, right? As a principal or curriculum leader or panel subject, for example, math panel head. They have different perspectives, so interpretation could be different, and then respond to how to do it. I think this is not new, but just a summary about the 3 stages. So go through the 3 stages, we can see the different term, the verb can be used with the technology. But in traditional way, no. It's just sit behind the classroom and watch the teaching, this time consuming. It's the first thing. And then if you watch 10 teachers teaching, the analyze of data, it tons of data. So you have no time to maybe use very confusion. Okay, maybe it's not a good way to analyze one teacher from the 4 or 5 perspective. So how to use the technology help us to conduct research? For example, imagine I'm a teacher. I'm teaching mathematics to offer you. But for example, Professor Fan is a researcher. He observed me, right, from his perspective. But I must say, he don't know what I'm thinking, right? He don't know. He just see me from his eyes. But noticing should be at the moment. My noticing, right? So how do I know the teacher, me, notice currently at the moment? Is a question. And if we interpret the teacher's teaching, from which perspective, use which tools? So these are challenging problems in the research area. There's some material, for example, if somebody wants to know a teacher's teaching, he or she cannot always have a chance to watch the lesson, right? Fly to Macau, I don't think it's a good way, but we can use the video. So video based is a very classical techniques, okay? Instruction video, short video or long video, video clips, or even some video just edited for spatial purpose. For example, we want to see the interaction or want to see some, we call it mathematical representations. So this video has a purpose emphasized. So choose appropriate material, the first way to help the researcher elicit the teacher noticing the video clips, which is very popular in the area for at least 20 years. So elite and let the teacher express their noticing is very common. Even currently, I must say maybe 80% research used this way because it's cheap. Okay, have a video. But what's the problem? We think what's the problem if we use the video to do the research? We also use the video, okay, because of COVID-19. It's a chance for us to study the research. This video published by Chinese Society of Education in mass education. So we these teachers, I was told they are expert teachers. You may say it's just demonstration lessons or examination lessons, but they try to group different kind of factors into one lesson to teach the young, the new generations how to teach. But we use a new way to analyze the data. The new way things, in the Chinese lesson, which might be different from the so-called Western classroom. Whenever you in Macau, in Guangzhou, in Beijing, Shanghai, or Chengdu, okay. West, east, north, and the east, okay, and the middle. I must say, 99% teacher they know the 3 point in the classroom teaching. What's your difficult point in your lesson? What's your key point in your lesson? So the point is very important in the classroom design. Even we don't know each other, but we know this is the so-called best principle for the teaching. So the key point, the difficult point, and what the strategies, okay, you will use in solving this problem. The key point means the learning or teach objective. I want to emphasize in this lesson. The difficult point means how the student learn these topics. Is there any misconceptions or mistakes, okay, when the teacher learned this topic? So prepare the lesson, you should note this point. And then follow is the so-called critical point, difficult point, and the third is key point. I asked the original inventor, Professor Yang Yudong in Shanghai. He told me why he used key point just because point, which is very beautiful for present the idea. So the third key point means the strategies. So if you know the critical point and the difficult points, so how do you do? So relate to the strategies. And then I discussed with some experienced teachers and expert in math education. They told me we lack a fourth point, which means the starting point. So before your teacher, you need to analyze the student learning. So the student's characteristics, and then the curriculum, the textbook, and then the misconceptions. So you design the strategies. So we add 4-point, the 4-point film, but which is very similar to the focus framework. I must say, in the US or in the European research communities, they use the open framework, learning to notice, AIR or AID. So what do you notice? Everything, right? So the open framework. Here is the focused framework to collect data. We also the videos. The videos can be real teaching situation recorded by researchers or by the teacher themselves. There's some teacher education program, they do the micro teaching, right? The micro teaching. They also use the video to analyze their teaching. And this could be used for large sample. That's why video-based teacher noticing research is so popular. And there are some advantages for use this method. But there's some problems if we use video. For example, we use video, we just use one camera to see the teacher's face or the background, right? Or the writing. We don't know what happened at the same time. The student, you may say, oh no, it's not problem. I use 2 cameras or 3 cameras, right? You can see them at the same time. But even use 3 or 4, I know in Melbourne or some other university, they set up a learning or teaching center, use different camera to study the teaching and learning. Very good, but expensive, very expensive. Then use some device, some system to analyze the activity, so which is popular. But this is some problems which are very expensive and time consuming. Another thing is related to the ethical issue, If you study the teaching and learning, you need to watch the student face, the classroom, the real classroom. So how to protect the privacy and the copyright, right? The copyright. So you can see generally, many research, they don't use the real teacher because the copyright issue, okay? And because you need got the consent from their parent, from the principal, right? From each teacher. So this is a long way to prepare the study. So this could be a limitation, but it still work in education research area. So another tool here is VR, virtual reality. So this is proposed by Parr in Kentucky University. I'm not sure the exact name, and do some new technology to study the classroom. Not just one camera. Okay, use this 360-degree video to capture the whole classroom interaction. And let the observer, the participant, have a sense to be immersed into this classroom. So this is a technology, the VR classroom, a different method of stimulate a typical medical school classroom through the environment of realistic and credible. And this is let the teacher, okay, let the participant to watch, to notice the classroom, use the real classroom teaching or VR. And we still have some other things just mentioned. How do you know the teachers notice at the moment? So this technique retrieved from the psychology. They use the tool to test children's writing or reading. I'm not sure. Eye tracking. I use eye tracking because I notice the student and this lady and this scholar and this student. So the eye track can track my chart. So what I focus on which aspect for a long time or short time. Maybe it could be focus. Okay, so use the eye tracking technology. There are different studies from the psychology, education psychology or psychology. They do the notice. If you type teacher noticing and eye tracking, there are many papers talk about this skill. But there's some limitation from technology. Not easy to capture the moment, and even we capture different moment, which is critical to know. So it also depends on the researchers' further interpretation. A good news is very easy. Is there some glasses, but it's very expensive. Google Glass. Somebody tell me, you can buy a cheap one from Taobao. Sorry, I don't know. I don't buy this. There's a glass can use this the tool to the eye tracking or noticing research. And in a very good city and Hangzhou, they also develop something like this. Okay, a glass, and this glass can use use the iCloud technology. If I'm a teacher, I'm teaching the lesson. So when I watch something, a student or classwork, a worksheet, or Blackboard, then at the same time, my observation, okay, upload to the cloud. And then on the other side, the computer show what I've noticed at the moment. So the connection happened. So from my perspective, and then the researcher see what I'm seeing. Currently, we don't know, right? You just see the slide at mine to know what I see. So this is the help from the technology. And there's another problem in AI R model. The problem is sometimes from our research experience, let's say I invite Professor Zhang to conduct the research. So she's my participant, but it's hard for her to explain their idea, right? Not all teachers have a very good language skill. They cannot type the thinking clearly in their mind. So how to do it? So even type a few words, but in her mind, a lot of thinking about the event, about the language. It's true. It's true. Not all the researcher or teacher have a very good language skills. So researcher develop, if you can make an animation, present your idea, so not just words or figure, which is very similar from our research for the student, right? Some primary students, they cannot write down too many words, so we ask them to draw a figure, which is similar. So for the teacher, we can ask the teacher to design a animation. And now, as far as I know, in a Korea, there's some research team using the animation to conduct teacher noticing research. And also use the this tagging tools, right? If you watch the video, watch video is boring. Of course, if you watch a movie, maybe it's better. Okay, watch teacher video is boring. So how can you persuade a teacher to watch the movie? I watch the teaching video 40 minutes or 30 minutes. It's unbelievable, right? So it's very boring. It's a long way. If I'm highly motivated to watch the video, but when I watch for 5 minutes, I forget the beginning. So I watch 15 minutes, I forget the beginning, right? So this is a problem, and it's a challenge in the research methodology if you conduct research. So how to do it? Read it and give a remark, okay, at the same time. So the tours let the participant, okay, remark what the notice at the same time with some highlights, some words. And a third way to present the AI response is the lesson scratch. But unfortunately, I remember this tool is produced by Michigan University, MSU. But 3 or 2 years ago, they told me that this platform is closed because of the Flash function have been closed by Adobe. They don't have this function now. So they moved to another platform. So this is very interesting. You can see. Currently, there's no privacy, right? No privacy, right? So each as the student, we can design some dialogue, the teachers in which way, and the blackboard, and some questions. So they use, if you check the papers, there's some articles to talk about this skill, lesson scratch. Let's scratch. Lee Min-yong is the co-editor in our special issue to express teachers' response. So just use the lesson scratch, the technology to help us to present the idea, And a summary about the extent research in teacher knowledge, I think want to highlight 4 points. The first is, if you are a pre-serve teacher, I'm very young, you cannot blame me. I have no experience. That's it. I have no experience, right? You cannot blame me. I try to be a teacher. You say I have no experience. Of course, it's true. That's why I want to be a teacher. So tell me and help me learning to see. Not everyone know how to see. I must say, if you sit in the classroom, somebody say I bring a form and I sit in the classroom and watch the teachers teaching and I know how to observe. No, it's not the case. You know which aspect. So the first one is learning to see, and then learning to describe and differentiate. It reflects some skills about teaching and pedagogy. If we see the student is debating about some topic, or some student cannot answer the question, but he tried to raise his hand or her hand to the teacher to explain more, but which is non-business with the topic. So what happened in the classroom? So you need to describe the event, the phenomena, and differentiate. And the third is learn to think, watch, observe, and interpret, and then to think why this happened. Okay, what the reason? The reason may be the teacher's mathematical knowledge is not so good, right? Maybe the pedagogy knowledge is not so good. Maybe it's the classroom environment, whatever. So learn to think what happened. It's not the end. The third is here, AIR, right? But I think we need to add a fourth dimension is learn to take the action, the action. So I may recall words. I like these words, right? The reflective cycle should slow down teacher thinking so that they can attend to what is rather than what they wish. So, which means I want to say slow down. Very important currently, everything is fast, right? Even teaching is very fast. And writing papers should be fast, right? So everything is fast, but study the teaching, study classroom should be slow down teacher thinking. So if we study on the teacher noticing, let us have a chance to slow down our reason. So teacher noticing reflect what teacher values in teaching and learning. That's why I think this could be reflective. Learning to teach, train our teacher to be a reflective learner, something like the reflective practitioner proposed by Sean, okay, 1983. And then the topics related to technology, right? Technology. So I must say, technology evolves more rapidly than education reform. Just mentioned yesterday afternoon, right? We talk about curriculum reform. We talk about the text reform. But when we talk about this, similar in Hong Kong, when we talk about STEM, the STEM came to Hong Kong in 2015. But the curriculum has been written for many years. So STEM is new in the curriculum. Now we talk about AI, but AI does not exist in curriculum, right? It's true. So the curriculum reform is slower than the technology. Then the question is, are we chasing the technology or not, right? Something like I use ChatGPT or use DeepSeek. Maybe tomorrow we'll have a third one. So what's the position we should stand if a teacher educator? These two figures generated by AI. This is generated by ChatGPT image. So I type the words. Please give me a figure to show the meaning. Okay, give me this one. Okay, which is rapid. But I use another tool, Dell E3 from our university, provide this AI platform. It gives me this figure. Okay, I think this may be related to curriculum reform, right? The classroom, and this related to the technology change involves quickly. So as a teacher educator, I think it's very important for us. We ask the student to use different AI, or we help them to use AI to help us, to assist us for teaching and learning. So the last stage is talk about the insight from the research. Back to the model AIR, okay, attend to, interpret, and respond to. So in 3 stages, we can use technology, just mentioned by the literature. And we study data, elicit the teacher noticing. But how to explain this result based on the knowledge, the content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge. So these are integrated, the whole process, the process. For example, somebody may just watch a part of the classroom, but another teacher, another school teacher, they may observe more data, okay, which are different based on their experience, and provide teacher with more authentic teaching context, not just videos, maybe some student work. And we can also use the dialogue, the data in the classroom, use this data to stimulate the teachers, if you are the teacher, how to understand the student dialogue and their communication. And we can address different stages of teacher noticing, use the technique 1, 2, 3. We can see from the example. In this stage, we can use eye tracking, right? We can use some platform to record the teacher's input. We use the animation or Let's Scratch to express their noticing. So in each stage, we can use the technology to help the research. Then back to the origin. We talk about the teaching 1, 2, 3, right? So the teacher, the student, and the content. So the blue one is yesterday afternoon's focus curriculum textbook. So these 3 elements are interacted. And then within this classroom, out of this is the school culture and the society, right? The environment. So where is the technology? I think we may think this problem. So the teachers believes their values, their noting skills can integrate the AI or other technology. Okay, we add them together, not just a simply addition. So integrate together to focus on the classroom teaching, student thinking, and student learning. The AI in the math education and teacher noticing in the classroom. So these two, I think, can be combined together because we focus on the student thinking and the teachers teaching. There are some papers they study on teacher noticing of curriculum. Okay, publication GRME, curriculum material. For example, I have a textbook, and Professor Wei has a textbook from the same publisher, but we have different focus to interpret the textbook, right? What is happened? Why we have different understanding? Okay, and then this is material. Another thing is the teachers, the student. So notice the student thinking, and the teachers' teaching behavior or their questioning skill, their task design. So this triangle, I call this golden triangle in the classroom. Each education research can focus this golden triangle. This 3 point and within and outside this triangle. And another discussion on the topic I think is move beyond individual to collective, because we talk about the collaboration currently, right? Learning community. So before this slide, we talk about the teacher's development, the teacher as an individual. But now we talk about the collaboration. So how to from individual noticing to collective noticing. If we set up a learning community, right? Sometimes the practical wisdom is not owned by a person, by a community. So that's why we have a meeting. That's why we discuss. That's why we debate. That's why we a project team, right? So we discuss something, then the wisdom arises. Okay, this is not belong to one person, belong to the community, belong to the collective group. So from the individual to collaborative, this is, I think, is it could be and it is a research topic currently in the teacher noticing research. This also echo with Lee Sherman's seminar in Hong Kong U in 2018. At that time, Hong Kong U Faculty of Education celebrate 180 years. Then he delivered seminar, and it's a joke. He said, "Everybody know me because of PCK, but now today I will propose a new term, PPK. PPK means professional pedagogical knowledge. Emphasize the collective wisdom, collective wisdom. So a teacher is not a unique teacher. He may have some so-called peer event or peer effect, the discussion and communication and watch others. So how this elective wisdom can help the teachers growth. So I take the example of lesson study. Lesson study is a collective wisdom, right? We are familiar with the cycle. We have conduct research to study how lesson study can contribute the development of teacher notice. We found not all stage, each stage have some contribution, but some are very important. So the research shows us these different dimensions. There's some effect on improved teacher noticing. If you have interest, you can find this paper, actually in International Journal Learning and Lesson Study. I want to highlight this term. This term, I try to combine the three things. One is lesson study, the learning community, right? And then is teacher noticing. The third dimension is i.e. something like the internet. Okay, so combine these three terms together is listen. Listen the student thinking, listen the teacher's voice. Okay, so this is very interesting. We talk about the technology empowered teacher education, or teacher education with the help assist from technology. 2 months ago, I conducted very small research. I try to go before the classroom teaching, which means if you want to teach, before that you will teach a lesson plan, right? So can I use the generate AI to design lesson plan? There's some research currently is conducting this focus. So I asked my students to use two AI. One is ChatGPT, the other is DeepSeek at the same time, in the same place. I give them two mathematical topics, okay, and show some so-called teacher model, for example, 5V model, ADDIE model, problem-solving model, okay? So based on this model, then tell the AI, give me a lesson plan and follow the topic. They show some results. If you are a very young teacher, maybe just take away. Okay, oh, this is very good. It's okay. At first, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 7 minutes, 5 minutes. So I use the lesson plan to teach. But if you want to be a very so-called professional or qualified teacher, you need to rethink the result from AI. Is that true? Is that suitable? So the second stage, I ask the student to recheck the result generated by the AI. So if you ask a question to the AI, what kind of question? So the student, two groups, one ask a critical inquiry question, the other is non-critical question to the AI. Then the AI adjusts the lesson plan, very interesting. And then make a choice. So now you make a choice which lesson plan you want to use in the classroom and why. And then two groups compare the result. The three stages, they ask the same question, critical inquiry. So this is the point I mentioned yesterday afternoon. Currently, we talk about AI. We cannot avoid using AI in classroom after lesson. It will happen, whatever you use, what kind of AI tools, but how to use it from the student or teacher's perspective. So the third aspect is our students, each student, they ask a critical dialogue with the AI. The critical, that means the problem it could open and provide multiple perspective, not just on a fact, but on a dialogue way. This is what we want to propose, a model for teaching and learning empowered by Gen AI. We learn to notice, we practice notice skill, but we need reflect with the help of emerging technology. So here is what we are in this at this moment. But I'm not saying it's useful or effective, but at least we know what happened when we use technology to help us for teaching, for lesson planning, for teaching. So what's the possible limitations and what need of these tools can help us to be a professional teacher. So last, I used this slide as an ending slide. For example, we talk about learning to teach, right? And the end is to be a reflective practitioner. So I told my students, you are not reflect in the action, but of course on the action. And then add a third dimension, okay? Discuss in the community. That's from the individual noticing to collective noticing. So they are connected together. I appreciate the word network, right? You need a network with your colleagues. So that's why you may have a chance from the novice teacher to the expert teacher, which proposed by David Bernina at the beginning. So this is the end of my presentation, seeing the invisible, pursuing the expertise in teacher education. So thank you so much.
It's really insightful and informative, right? So now is the Q&A session. We have yesterday's presenters here. So do you have any questions? Okay. Huh? Not yet. How about? Okay, and Anissa.
Because thank you for your talk. It was very, very interesting. I'm also working with Francesca, that you know, on with pre-service teachers. So, and for example, in lesson plan and so on. So, could you tell me something more about the notion of critical dialogue? Because I arrived some minutes late, so I don't know if you introduced this notion at the beginning of your talk. So.
To be honest, it's quite new for me. I just learned from the CME, Critical Mathematical Education, the book. You know, the new book. The writer just passed away in this year. So I think which means we sometimes we ask the teacher to write down a lesson plan. So what topics, what kind of should we teach for my students? But in this space, there's some question need to be asked. So if the student provide the alternative method, different solution, so what can respond to the students? So the critical dialogue in this so-called the general AI, if you ask these questions, they may provide a more flexible lesson plan for the teachers, not a rigid for the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because 1, 2, 3, 5 are controlled by the content, by example, but you cannot control the student thinking. So that's why in using AI for lesson plan, we try to let the precept teacher have a chance to use the so-called critical way to ask some more possibilities. If I don't use game, how can I use another different approach to teach topic? Then at least the teacher know 2 or 3 methods to teach the same topic. Otherwise, he just focus on game-based learning, the games. What kind of games? Give me a good games. Give me a very efficient games. So this is may say something like the closed problem, and then the critical be more open. This is a chance for them to learn how to be critical, but we don't know what happened in the real teaching. So the further study is we design some research before teaching use the critical way, use AI. A good way is then see if they use the plan in teaching. Okay, at school, maybe it could be different. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm Bing Wei. My research area is science education, which is similar with mathematical education. Yeah, I have heard the term teacher notice, but I'm not familiar with this concept. But based on your presentation, I want to confirm if my understanding is right. As I see, the teaching notice or the notion or the theory of teaching notice provides a teacher perspective to observe or understand some things such as students' learning, teachers' learning, or teachers' professional development, or the content, subject content or curriculum content. I'm not sure if my understanding is right or not. Okay. Yeah.
The theory is retrieved from the teacher's perspective.
Thank you.
That's true. Yeah. From the teacher. That's why the keywords. Researcher want to clarify what's the professionalism in teacher education. So what's the special things or special characteristic of a teacher? So teacher noticing could reflect there are some skills. I'm a math teacher or I'm a science teacher. So you teach well or teach not so good, so well. So what's the problem? May reflect the noticing skill is different. So it's from the teacher perspective. It's correct, yeah. And the purpose is try to set up a professional competency of the teacher. It's a part. The noticing skill is rich or is weak, reflect the professional skill or professional competence is weak or strong. So it's something like, you may say something like the indicator of your professional competence of a teacher, not the student.
Theory or theoretical framework for teacher development. Can you say it? It's a theoretical framework for.
You can say, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's why you can see there currently in the field, at least we have 4 perspectives. So for the theoretical perspective to explain these things, but there's not a unique theory to explain. So you can use so-called social culture theory to explain why teacher A and teacher B make a difference to look at the teacher noticing. But you can use the cognitive psychology perspective to explain how this noticing is developed from the teacher. But it's not a theory of teacher noticing, it's a construct. I would say it's a construct, just something a concept developed by the scholars. That's why I have a slide. Maybe it's time for us to set up a strong foundation for reconceptualization of this construct. Different people say different story.
Yes,
it's true. There could be a difference.
So from the wording or literally, from the literal meanings, teacher notice is a very common phrase. It doesn't have theoretical meanings. We can say teacher attention, or teacher, So
this happened in the research paper. Some scholars use attention, attend.
Yes.
Some use professional vision. Some use teacher noticing, which is very similar to the affect research. For example, we talk about the attitude, belief, perception, something like, or conception. They should have some common meanings. But if you clearly discern this concept, they should have some subtle difference. But that's why the reason. If we talk about the noticing, we should be different from observation. Everybody can see many things, but if you take the teacher noticing as a whole, then you could reflect so-called 3 stages or 2 stages. everybody can aware something, but aware does not mean you have some interpretation. So there's a debate, not a debate, there's a dialogue between awareness and noticing. And awareness also proposed by John Mason in his book. So he's from awareness and then noticing. So noticing may be stronger. I'm not sure the term may be that correct, but you're stronger than aware. Okay, aware the change, right? But that's it. Then I get out of the classroom. But if I notice with some intention, I try to explain the event and then make an action. This is my understanding about the construct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Zhang. It's a very systematic introduction about teacher notice. I mean, I'm also the first to know this concept. One comment and one question. The comment is, you will talk about, it was in a joking way, as a teacher educator, very often the student will ask us, what you want to see when we do the class observation. And I think my answer would be, what you want the student to learn? Or I want to see students, not see you, so you make the learning happen. I mean, this relating to my follow-up the questions. And I think a similar direction from Professor Wei's question. To me, teachers' notice is still quite a teachers-centered perspective or concept. But on the other hand, we all know, teachers even notice very much based on how much teacher understanding of students' learning. And the students' learning is a very contextualized concept as well, because when we're teaching different students, different context, they're changing all the time as well. That's why we said teaching job is so complex. So you actually mentioned about that at the end of the presentation, that triangle, teachers, students, and what's this other collective? Yeah, content. So I'd like to know first, is there any more research connect them together? It sounds like even each one is quite complex in terms of the technology and research. And also follow up, because the recent development of the teacher's notice concept seems including teacher's action as well. It's not just the notice, interpret, but we also be able to take actions, which again is one of the areas for new teacher or pre-service teachers feel difficult. And I want to know more. Is there any more research in this area as well? Yeah, thank you very much.
Observation. And the second question, for my understanding and my reading, I think still not too much, but a few studies, they emphasize the connection from the noticing to action. Because we should put the noticing from action, right, to the action, to the practice. But the first question is difficult. The three elements, there's a team, they try to link up these three elements from a linear way. For example, notice, and then practice and the student outcome. Okay, but and not easy. It's a large scale. Maybe Professor Pham invest more money on this project. Okay, the three elements, align them together. For example, we design some material, and based on the knowledge, some personal disposition of values of knowledge, then we try to do some observations. Okay, the practice, how they implement these ideas, and then to see what happened on the student side, right? I don't think there has a research on these three elements because it's a large scale and they need many money to emphasize this. But there's a team focused on the first two stage. Okay. My doctoral student graduated last year. I'm not sure. She conducted research similar to your second question. In some university, there's a practical course that they say the teaching observation and the teaching practice in the year 3 and year 4. Okay, these three stages, two stages. The year 3 students, they need observed teaching at school for 1 week or 2 weeks. And then in the final year, year 4 student, they need to conduct the teaching practice at school for 5 or 6 weeks. So the research is how the noticing skill is developed through these two stages. And if their notice skill have been, for example, improved, the improvement can have an impact on the teaching practice. She wants found some relation between the two stages, but not easy because it's hard to find enough. For example, they need continues to collaborate with the researcher from the year 3 to year 4, similar to the longitudinal study. But I think it's a good try. Let the student to use the noticing framework to watch the lesson and compare to another group, they don't use the framework, watch the lesson. So what happened? And conduct some workshop to explain the noticing method. Then when they conduct micro-teaching, they submit a video to show the noticing level. And then move to the teaching practice. But the researcher is hard for him for her to observe all the participants. So they ask the student to submit one of their so-called best teaching video to the researcher. Then to see if or not their noticing skill have been improved and how this influence their teaching. So the first and the second stage have been studied by some researcher. But the last related to the student, I don't think we have this study. Okay. But it's a good direction, but it's a challenge.
Slide about cultural dialogue. I want to see. There a cultural dialogue about you have ROE the book. Teaching notice in math teaching in cross-cultural dialogue. I'm wonder what the difference about the teaching notice in different culture. What you find? What is the main finding?
We are read the result from the upcoming commentary. We have read a commentary. Yes. Let me think. I think at least the two perspectives. One is how and why different frameworks are used in the same study. For example, it's mentioned by Professor Wei. Everybody talk about noticing, but we use different theories or framework to interpret. But we based on the same result. So what happened if I interpret Chinese lesson, use the framework, which would be different from a Western scholar to explain the same topic, the framework. So you can see in this dialogue, there's different frameworks, theoretic framework are used in the results and what happened. Another thing is the interpretation. Even the same event happened in the classroom. So-called the Chinese scholars, the Singapore scholars, the US scholars, they may explain the event based on their understanding about teaching and learning. Let's say, if we teach students in the classroom, the students are very quiet. We may say it's a good way. It's a good, right? Because they listen to me carefully. But from their perspective, it's not so good. They need to be active. They need to talk with me and integrate with me. So the same phenomena happening in the classroom maybe reflect different, I must use the term value, okay? Value of effect teaching and learning. So this happened in this special issue. So we try to emphasize, don't simply simplify the framework. Don't just take noticing as a universal concept. No. We just use the term to conduct research, but it need diverse or different perspective from the 20 years ago is a West perspective, but now I think Asian countries should contribute to the field because we have lots of teaching experience, very good teachers, right? And we contribute to the teacher education, but few studies emphasize to unfold this so-called black box to explain what happened in the classroom. I'm not saying which is so good, no, just a comparative. So what happened when we talk about effectiveness? What we talk about so-called professional development in this context and in the other context. So it's not the right or wrong. It's just different perspective provide to the international readers. We hope so. I guess it's a window. I'm not saying the good window. We hope so. Thank you. There's some research on scholars, and they invite Singapore scholars watch their video. The teachers explain this, and they say, okay, I just know your understanding about teaching and learning or the lesson study. There's some research on this perspective. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. What throws me off, and maybe this is my question to you, in the noticing, are there characteristics that are indicators of the levels? So in the research, is PCK a good indicator, a high level of PCK? Is knowledge, professional knowledge or whatever? What are the indicators that we have seen so far in research that says, okay, we see there's going to be good noticing here? Do all teachers notice? That's the important question. Because at the end of the day, if it is about growth, the professional growth and so forth, what about if the levels remain lowest? What happens there?
Two things, I think. One is the relation between teacher noticing and the teacher's PCK. But even in PCK, we still have debate. PCK is a knowledge or not. Okay, of course, this is another issue. So if we take a look on the teacher noticing, I remember that the level reflects at least 2 or 3 indicators. One is agent. So you notice on teachers or students or other non-teaching related elements, so the agent. The second is status. So if you focus on teacher, what kind of elements you will identify from the teacher? Or if you notice the student, you will notice students, the face, the dialogue, the speaking, or their thinking, or their so-called the misconceptions. So from the people to the interpretation, these could reflect the level. So the level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no 5, okay, 4 or 3 levels reflect their focus on some different people and the interpretation on different aspects. We try to connect this with the PCK, but currently, I must say currently, I asked somebody, do you think noticing is a PCK? You say, it's similar, but it's different, okay? But because PCK don't talk about the student or teacher, they talk about some strategies and the noticing, the knowledge of student thinking and misconceptions. But there's some common things that they're different. So the level reflects some personal observation, a personal interpretation, and a personal reflection on this. But some scholars, I think, for me, could reflection be part of noticing or not? We need to consider. That's why a new framework could be developed. And I don't think this should be a unique one. Everybody can develop noticing, but try to base on some evidence support. Yeah. Thank you, Mangola.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
I will take some time. First of all, I think your presentation is really informative, very helpful. But I remember yesterday you see doctor students should be critical. Hey, yeah. So I will try to be critical. I do share with Professor Wei, Shifan, and others kind of concerns. So because this is, I wrote down a lot, maybe I cut long story short. First, I think noticing skills should be clearly defined. Yeah, you mentioned John Mason, the starting point, but John Mason, of course, I know him personally very well. He is a mathematician. He's not trained in math education, even he's very famous in math. I don't think he conceptualized this way. Of course, later people did a lot. Yeah, John is famous in problem solving. But still, I think now, even if you clearly define the noticing skills, we as teacher trainers or teacher educators, do we know? I mean, like if we don't know mathematics, how can we teach mathematics? But if we are not clear about the noticing skill, how can we train or preserve the teachers? So there's something we need to do further. I mean, like PISA framework, we need to come up with a framework about the noticing skills. And then I think conceptually, I think I really being critical, being honest. I really don't agree with what was presented. Eventually, you go bigger and bigger, then you cover everything. Noticing is getting information through your eyes and through something like this. Now, reflection is a way of your thinking about your experience, make sense out of your experience. Knowledge of PCK is knowledge, so I think they're all different. Of course, they point to the same purpose, to improve teaching, the quality of teaching. So we debate, you see, we debate. So I think the whole, not you, but the area, I think those researchers sometimes go beyond noticing itself. So it became evaluation, it became a reflection. I think to me, some part is, Professor, we mentioned very well, teachers' attention to classroom. So teachers noticing to me is more in the classroom. But PCK could be before or after, could be quiet. So teachers noticing, you a teacher, you're a good teacher, I know. But do you think maybe you did not notice, what do you notice? I'm also reflecting, but this is not, reflecting is not noticing, I think. Yeah. And then I also did study informative assessment or alternative assessment. So to me, this is collecting information and making inferences. So noticing is one way of teachers collecting information, mainly by, but if you see other things, you put everything into noticing, then the concept is, I think, somehow, I would think abused or misused. But everything, reflection is also noticing. I think reflection is after you notice. So you make a decision. So this is also kind of formative assessment. You know, during your teaching, you notice, you get information, you look at the student feedback, their body language, and their behavior. So you take action. So that is the result or outcome of your reflection, using your PCK, using your knowledge for all the information you notice or behavior you notice. So to me, this is the way to figure it out. But more, I think it's a more systematic, not you as a group of you, about noticing, I think, more burdens on teachers. So this is why I think a lesson study, I think it's not a very good way. Writing research paper is very good. But if you ask teachers to do lesson study, a lot of people ask me in the United Kingdom, I say no. Teachers are complaining, so busy. Now you want them to meet twice a week or once a week to observe and then they do it. That is just for research. For teachers, I think then, to me, I think it's a simpler, the better. So teacher can implement. So when you say you slow down teachers thinking, I think it's very good, very necessary. But what you add is counterproductive. But teachers are so busy, you want them to stop, then you make them. So you can respond later. Yeah, so maybe culture matters, because in mainland China, teachers 12 class periods a day, a week. I did. When I taught, I eventually 10 class periods per week. In the United Kingdom, it's 35. It's USA, how about in Italy? A dozen class period. 18. What's the average? What's the median? Oh, yeah. How about the Netherlands? You're not noticing, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you very much. So maybe Professor Zhang's correct. Just different culture, also notice different things. To me, when I observe young colleagues here, we also have, they are teaching, I always observe if they give students time to reflect, to ask questions, and if there's interaction, not just lecture demonstration, keep talking. So I feel very unhappy because I did a program accreditation for teaching license. I observed 10 universities. I was a leader, of course. So every time I criticize, but this is the purpose that ministry want you to find a problem. So professors just keep talking. So you don't give student time, university student, to give feedback, to ask if they understand or not. Then your teacher will be involved. Actually, they did not know. They even failed to notice. They just notice what they not notice learning behavior. Of course, accreditation is like review, so we were expected to find problems. So, but here it would be the same. I think if I observe, I hope there's a group activity, cooperative learning, interaction, not just lecturing. So anyway, come back. So I think teaching noticing is very important, but we cannot expand it to everywhere or the whole system. It's just in classroom teaching to get information, to get feedback. So I don't think it is a well-established field. Thank you very much. But maybe we can establish as a field. Yeah.
This is also explored by math and science area currently, especially more science educator research on this. I agree your observation, the comment on the research. That's why I show the whole picture. You can see from the line, the construct is involved, which means different scholars may attach their values or their perspective on the concept, but which may be quite different from the original. Something like STEM, right? STEM you cooking, STEM. Yeah. There's some compilation which the teacher noticing stages with a classroom observation component. For example, use the Alan Schofer's True Framework, Teaching for Understanding, based on the discipline based. If we don't notice mathematics, how can be a math teacher? So you can see in this framework, many frameworks, they lack of subject based. Notice what kind of content, not just teacher, student. Of course, they are important. But if we teach math, the content should be proposed. I try. I ever used these last year's ICME presentation, combine the so-called true framework. For example, we note one dimension is subject knowledge, the mathematics, and then second is cognitive demand. The third is agency, the learning opportunities in the classroom. Have you noticed the learning opportunities? And then is the assessment. How do you notice the teacher assess the student, including the formative or summative assessment during the whole process? So we need some clear and specified indicator or dimension for the teachers to notice the classroom. I agree with this point. Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Yes, a reflection on this dialogue, because I know that the work by John Mason he speaks about attention. So I think that noticing was a need for researchers that observe classroom lessons. Because, for example, I work a lot with teachers, and I observe that starting from the same lesson plan, some of them are very effective, others not. So the problem is decision-making in the moment. So I think that the notion of noticing was introduced to distinguish between what is the result of a long reflection. For example, formative assessment can be done, can be a reflection done after the lesson. So there is a lot of time to take decision, a lot of time, I don't know, one day, some hours, while in the moment is very difficult. So if I interpret it correctly, I think the notion of noticing is relating in particular to these quick decision that you have to take. This is why I think Kaiser and others added decision making, because it's at the basis, it's more than focus than attention, because sometimes teachers attend to something but are not aware of it, while I'm not sure, but noticing is something more than attention. So it's why this term was introduced. Although I agree that certainly if we can add some categories in order to better understand what they are noticing, what teachers are noticing is important. So it's only a reflection about because I think it's a core element for those that are interested in teacher professional development, in working with teachers, in researching on teaching. So it's only a reflection.
If we talk about the noticing that moment, it's true, but we should be aware of the observation. Every moment they accumulated could be a different, could be experience, and this different experience accumulated further could be conceptualized into, could be a so-called theories or some framework for teacher learning. So that's why we try to, based on the evidence, to explore possible, I'm not saying so-called effective noticing, but we try to identify something, then it may contribute to the teacher education. Otherwise, we just try and error and try again. So this may time consuming and money consuming. So that's why if we identify some indicators of so-called possible effective ways to improve the noticing skill, maybe these teachers could be developed faster, or could be a professional teacher in the school for within several years. This is, I think, the purpose and aim of teacher education, from my understanding. Okay, thank you.
Final question from me, because I noticed it. You mentioned different people have different understanding of teachers noticing. A Western and Eastern culture of people, they have different. So my question is, first is my reflection. If this is the case, how people can exchange, we're talking different things. Even, but then I re-reflect again, then this is coming in educational research. You use the same term to refer to different things. Then my question is, do you think there's someday we have a well-established, commonly accepted definition of teachers noticing, so we can have exchange like it? Yes, this is my question. What's your view?
For our research and the review, there is a point I think can be confirmed that if the noticing more on the student thinking and the student work, then this kind of skill can produce a so-called effective teaching and learning. There's some connection just mentioned by the professor. So the noticing skill and the teaching practice, what a relation. So if the teacher notices more on the student and understand the students, then the teaching, our so-called practice, is better and accepted by the student. So this is what we talk about the effective teaching. If the focus more on the lesson structure, on the teacher's presentations more, then the outcome is not so good. This is from the research, from the evidence. So I think the findings can let us, I'm not saying confirm, maybe reconfirm some good indicator. So-called teacher center means what? Not just let the student to be the center, no. Just focus on the student thinking. So we build up a student thinking classroom, not a student-centered classroom. They'll be more specified for teaching and learning. This is, I think, the role of why we conduct education research. we try to identify and explore more uncertain or I think the yes is on the student thinking is yes. Yes, because this retrieved from Jacobs, the research. That's why she proposed professional noticing on student thinking, not just notice everything. Yeah. The pedagogy, yes.
Okay, thank you for coming. So thank Professor Zhang for the wonderful presentation. Yeah, thank you.